There are many good reasons for learning a language like Python. I already mentioned a lot. Its versatility, ease of use, and what you can do with it. I guess that's the versatility. You can build all kinds of things with it. But of course, there are other languages than Python too. There is C++, for example. This also is an extremely powerful language, and it also can be used to build all kinds of things, but it's a bit more complex than Python. You write things more from scratch than with Python. It has less things built in. You have to solve more problems on your own, I'd say. So it's a bit harder. And we mostly use it for desktop apps. It's very popular for creating games, for example. But there also often it just runs behind the scenes and you use some framework, some engine that builds up on it. So you can absolutely write C++ code, but it's a complex language, and often you have other languages you use instead. And for example, Python, the version we're using, builds up on C, which is not exactly the same as C++, but generally related to it. And Python is an extra layer on top of that, you could say, which is more accessible. We also have languages like Java. Java is also a very versatile app, which we can use to build desktop apps, web apps, and even mobile apps with Android. And speaking of Android, we also have things like Swift or Objective-C, which you use to build iOS apps or macOS apps. We have languages like JavaScript, which run in the browser or also can be used on the server, so which you'd only use for building web apps. PHP would be another example, a language you really only use for building websites and web apps. And then you again have Python, which is very versatile, which you use for data science, desktop apps, utility scripts, and web apps. So which one should you choose? Why is Python the right choice? It obviously depends on what you're building. The cool thing about versatile languages like Python is that if you learn it, you're basically free to build whatever you want at any given time in the future. There are some languages, like JavaScript in the browser, where you have no alternative. Python can't be used to run in a browser to build the front end of a website, so to say. And Python also can't really be used to build mobile apps. But Python can be used for a lot of things that happen on a typical computer, or when we talk about web development, to build a web server. And therefore, this versatility really is a huge plus in case you're starting off and you're not 100% sure where you want to go, or if you know you want to go into a direction where Python is really strong, like server-side web development or data science. It's also important to recognize that only the two languages here on the right, Swift and JavaScript in this example here, have a UI attached to them. By definition, these allow you to build things where you see something with a nice UI relatively fast, because you're either building mobile apps or you're building websites, and both lead to things you can see, you can touch, you can use. Other languages like Python, C++, and Java are more on the build the logic part, less on the presentation part, and therefore you can add UIs to them, and we will in this course. But the core of Python and so on is really just the logic that runs on your machine, which is also the reason why for the majority of this course, we will work in the terminal and execute our code on our computer because it's doing a lot of logical work, which of course is the driver of any important application, the logic that happens in your program, not the presentation. But as I said, we'll add the presentation in this course too.